Seth Rogen would be brilliant. That's every time I talk to somebody about this, uh, I get a good idea. Actually, it's your idea. Seth Rogen would be awesome as Toby, and he is Jewish. He's about the right age. I'm sure his parents are worried that he won't have any children, so they won't have any grandchildren. I used to think that was a Jewish stereotype, and I kind of disapproved of that. But I mean, there's so many movies where the Jewish grandparents are putting pressure on their kids to have babies. But researching my uh, my screenplay, Tobit, it comes from the book of Tobit. So I'm looking at the demographics, and man, I don't write a film. Might take me a week of work. I'm not even going to start until I do the demographics. I guess it comes from my political science background. That's what we do, demographics, election demographics. One time I accidentally got tricked into teaching human geography. Uh, it was going to cost them X amount of money to hire a geography professor to teach. I don't remember the details. They had a physical geography teacher, but they needed to teach a human geography. So I got roped into that. They said, "Well, you've been to all these countries. Uh, you're fine." And they can get Southern Association of Colleges and Universities to grant a waiver. My degree's not in geography; it's in political science. Uh, University College of Dublin, and political science. Totalitarian government at the time in 1991, that was the Soviet Union. So I got the degree and finished school in May of 1991. And guess what happened in December 25th of 1991? I've been on the job 6 months. Soviet Union broke up and dissolved. So yeah, my expertise. The paper was on Lenin and street art, so my expertise is totalitarian use of street art and propaganda, parades, posters, banners, public displays of propaganda. Yeah, I have 4,000 posters. I made a friend, a Russian astronaut, and he said, "Man," and he was sending me posters like crazy. 10 cents, $1 for a ton, and it was surplus, and it was trash. He said, "Man, you should have been here in 1991. People were taking all their propaganda that they had up in their house to keep the communists away. Because if you had red everywhere, they'd leave you alone. If you wore your medals, uh, they'd leave you alone." He said, "Man, there were bonfires in the middle of the street everywhere, and you could have picked it all up for nothing." Well, he didn't realize I was picking it up for nothing at the time. But $1 in this was in 1996. It was a huge amount of money. Okay, I'm sorry. Just cut that out. Seth Rogen would be a great Toby. I'm sure he's one of the attentive public. I mean, he's Jewish, and he probably paid attention in school. I don't know. He smokes a lot of weed, or is that part of his persona? I don't know. But I guarantee you, there's an elite group of Jewish scholars and students, Jewish students, more than you would think, that know the story of Tobit. It's in the Old Testament, and Seth Rogen would be great Toby. The whole story, it's kind of about Sarah. I know it's the book of Tobit from Catholic and Eastern Orthodox Christians. It's in their Bibles. It's not in Protestant Bibles. Sarah is not the Sarah from Abraham. Sarah is the wife. It is. She gets married 7 times, and 7 times she's a widow. So, and it's before the marriages are even consummated. They don't even make it to the wedding bed. And basically, there's 1.5 billion people that are taught this story, that in the Old Testament, a woman is married 7 times and widowed 7 times. And I think the nuns leave the part out about the empty marriage bed and the wedding never being consummated before the demon comes. And you know, and you're a little kid, you learn this story. Kids know what a wedding is. Kids know what doesn't take them long to figure out what a orphan or a widow is. And a demon did all this. That sticks. I tell people Tobit is the greatest story never told on film. Yeah, it's in half the Bibles and never been put on film. There's a silent 100 years ago, but that's so obscure. There are a couple of animated films for kids. There are films, ancillary material, short films, production value very, very low. Film for $1,000, 10 minutes for $1,000 or something like that. And the big expenses are the costumes, which are robes. The story happened 3,000 years ago. I set mine in modern. Yeah, I guess it's called modern. It's not contemporary. It's modern. 1930s. Not in the middle of Mesopotamia, but in Holland, in the Netherlands, specifically in Amsterdam. Tobit lives in Amsterdam. He's 80 years old and a pious Jew. And I think Seth Rogen would be a great son. Tobit is the father, 80 years old, and he goes blind. And he's broke because he can't make any more money. And he's always prided himself on being successful, but he has a wife and a kid. And he's a charitable man, pious and charitable, and he's given a lot of his money away. So now, and only now, he remembers some money that he stored or banked with a relative in London. So he sends Seth Rogen, his son Toby. I can see that. Seth Rogen would be absolutely incredible. Probably because he meets Sarah. He meets the girl who's lost the 7 husbands. Can you imagine being a little apprehensive? Seth Rogen could go in. Actually, she doesn't have to tell him anything. All of Europe knows the story of poor Sarah. Jewish girl, nice Jewish girl from a good Jewish family who does nothing to bring this on herself, but a demon is killing her husbands. Seth Rogen will have heard about this and he'll be a little bit cautious. He's invited to stay in their house for a night, and the next morning they're going to go to the bank and get the money, travel back. Okay, there's an angel that goes with him to protect him. Tobit has prayed. So he has a companion, but he's not obviously an angel. Raphael is an angel associated with guidance. So he needs a guide for protection and for repairing relationships. So you can imagine after 7 weddings and 7 demonic murders, there's quite a few relationships that could stand a little work. Well, fortunately, Raphael's there. So Toby or Seth Rogen, I can see that. Just enough humor, just enough dark humor to be wary of a woman that's had 7 husbands. I don't want to be the 8th. So there is an important scene right in the center of the movie where Toby, well, I like her. She looks good. She smiles, and I don't know if she likes me. And Seth Rogen could, like Raphael says, well, talk to her, see if the feeling's mutual, maybe some chemistry there. How do you know if you don't try? But you shouldn't be scared of silly old demon. I can take care of the demon. If you want to marry her, marry her. So go talk to her father. If the demon comes for you, well, that's my department. I promised your father I would bring you and the money home safely, and that's my role here. Don't be afraid of a demon. Demons have weaknesses, and I know their weaknesses, and I'll flat out tell you exactly how it'll work. And so Toby or Seth Rogen talks to Sarah, talks to the father. They get married. The demon comes for him. He's the 8th, and he's going to be killed before he can even consummate the marriage. But Raphael takes care of it. I mean, that's his job. Sarah had prayed for a solution. All this is weighing heavy on her heart, and I guess that's the moral of the story. It's a large part of the moral of the story is she went through all this ordeal, 7 husbands and 7 demonic murders, 7 marriages and no husband to show for it. But did she doubt God? No. Did she question God? No. She doubted her ability to deal with it all, but did she lose her faith? No. So that's where we're coming from. Seth Rogen is probably has the 3rd most number of lines. He is a potential victim, but God's not going to let that happen because his father is pious. Tobit is one of the most likable guys in the Bible. It's only in half the Bible. Protestants started taking Tobit out in 1923. And I asked a Catholic priest, I went to school in Dublin, and I didn't have, I think, one Catholic priest the whole time I was there. But I asked a different Catholic priest, it's a Catholic college and they're everywhere, about the book of Tobit, that I was liked it and I was interested in it, and I don't understand why it was taken out. And he said politics, which that's my field. I think like that. I understand that. And this guy was spoke in political terms, so I like that. He said, "Is it a coincidence Luther wanted it out in 1533 and nothing was done until after 3 years after World War One? The Americans hated the Catholics so much they took it out, and it started with the Lutherans. So he knew I was raised Lutheran, and it totally makes sense. I didn't argue with him a bit, but he said it has nothing to do with theology or religious beliefs. Now, my Lutheran minister, sometimes I play the devil's advocate with him, but he understands, and he can play hardball as good as any. he said, no, it has nothing to do with politics. We took it out because Luther wanted it out. And I said, well, it took 500 years to get for Luther to have his way. Well, the Lutheran Church is very conservative, and we're not going to change, and we resist change, and we're almost as conservative as the Catholics. So it stayed in there all these years. But yes, we took it out in 1923. Well, how come? Luther didn't want it in there, and it has magic. I said, so magic, if it's too Catholic, if the miracle is too Catholic, it's out. A good thing we're not taking all miracles out of the Bible, because there wouldn't be any books, there wouldn't be any Bible left. And I'm not sure he chuckled, but he tried to explain. It's about superstition. So it's really not magic. Was is the key word there? It's superstition. Now, the line between superstition and magic is pretty fine, but it doesn't matter. It's in half the Bibles. There are 1.5 billion people that know the story. I don't know why you wouldn't make this film. Seth Rogen would be great. A different streaming service, yeah. I talked to them and I said, read the book of Tobit from the Bibles, and if you want, email me. I'll send you the script. It's about 8 pages in the Bible, and I took each verse and wrote a scene. So I turned 8 pages into 89 pages, 98 pages, and it should be an hour and 45 minutes. That's what I'm thinking. It'll have a little magic. It'll have a big fight between an angel and a demon. Seth Rogen gets the girl, and Sarah is the sweetest, most likable. You have to okay. And in that interview with the other streaming service, they asked me, well, who would be Sarah? She's the lead female. I said Reese Witherspoon or Sandra Bullock. They're both of an age. They could have been married 7 times and had their husbands killed. But can you see either of them being jaded or discouraged in any way? Nah, they would. And especially if I don't know if the actresses are religious. It doesn't really matter. The character is religious, so her religion holds her up, buoys her up. And 7 husbands are really not the end of the world. If you have and keep your faith. So that's Sarah. And I told this story to the other people, and I got a lot of emails because I said read the Bible, then read the book of Tobit. It's in the Bible, and then email me. I'll send you the script. You can read the script and compare it to the Bible and tell me how much damage you think I did, which I don't think I did any. And a guy emails me, yeah, I've got to talk to you. No, face to face. Meet me on Zoom. I arranged that. I didn't know who he was. It could have been Seth Rogen calling me. I want to do this film. I don't know. So I talked to him, and he says, you can't send this film. Don't send this film to everybody that emails you. And I said, why? And he said, they'll steal it. And I didn't hurt his feelings. I mean, I taught 30 years in a college classroom, Democrats and Republicans and atheists and Christians and every type. And trust me, it's just easier to stay out of trouble. And I just tell them the first day, I tell the truth the way that I see it. And if I hurt somebody's feelings, raise your hand and you can have equal time. And that never even came up, but I didn't hurt this guy's feelings. I did tell him it's 3,000 years old and in half the Bibles, and 1.5 billion people hear this story when they're kids as part of their religious training. So, but no, it's impossible to steal it. I mean, the Bible's in public domain. I'm not stealing it from the Bible. No one's stealing it from me. It might be difficult for someone to make a movie based on Tobit that's set in Nazi-occupied Europe. But that's about it. If you want to put the story of Tobit in Mexico or Canada or Manila, Philippines in the 18th century, the 19th century, or in the future, make it a science fiction. There's nothing I can do about it. The story's in the Bible. So what's the big secrecy? I'll talk about it all day if you want. You said 30 minutes, and I've gone on 21. Tobit. Seth Rogen can play Toby. I don't know. This would be a lot of free press. And the Hollywood tabloids, what's it called? Deadline. And TMZ would go gorilla bananas if Mel Gibson agreed to play Tobit. First of all, he's got that huge beard now, and he's an ardent Catholic. I don't know if people realize that. He's not Roman Catholic. But all Catholics, they love Tobit because it's theirs. It wasn't good enough for the Protestants. And Tobit is likable. I've seen academic studies, surveys. Who in the Old Testament would you most trust your kids with? Who in the Old Testament would you want to drink a beer? Who in the Old Testament is most likable? Who in the Old Testament would you leave your money to in your will? Questions like that. And it was indexed by page numbers, like per capita studies. So Tobit has 8 pages, and his likability is way up there. Now, other figures have more pages, and their likability is actually less than Tobit. Yeah, I'm talking about Noah and Moses. He beats them on a per page basis. Makes you think if there were more pages written about Tobit. I'll tell you why we like Tobit is he's pious and prays constantly. He's charitable, wants to take care of everyone he sees, and he wants to take care of his family. It doesn't matter what Mel Gibson said when he was drunk. I know he said it's happened several times, but I think he likes to get messed up and spout off. Well, that's about half of us, to be honest. So I don't want to get drunk. I don't want to be on camera drunk. Not with you asking these pointed questions. But, okay. This might scare him away, but he owes the Jewish community something. Whether he realizes that or not, he could redeem himself. And how many films are about redemption? You know, if a filmmaker won't allow redemption, what is he doing in this business? I mean, how many films are based on redemption? So, I think the Jewish community should let him do it. I think Mel Gibson would be good for him personally. I've heard him speak about Jews in the Old Testament, and there's not a harsh word. Jews and Christians are buddy-buddy these days. I know that is an old-dated paradigm. Anti-Semitism is it's not from the fundamentalist Christians. Islam is really divided. fundamentalist Islamic, they can't get over the fact that the Jews have the homeland. They think it's their land. They're very territorial or whatever. A majority of Muslims will freely admit they are the people of Abraham. Jews are the people of Abraham, the descendants of Abraham. Christians, Americans in Oregon, fundamentalist Baptists living in Oregon in the northwest part of the United States are part of the chosen people of Abraham, the descendants of Abraham. And so that big divide, some people dream to divide us, and it's gone. I don't even hear people talk in those terms anymore. I think Hollywood could forgive Mel Gibson, and he could knock this out of the park. So could Seth Rogen. I don't know any other way to explain it. Yeah, it's not going to happen. I mean, Mel Gibson, Seth Rogen, Sandra Bullock, and Brad Pitt could play Raphael, the angel. The week before I sat down and wrote it, I was in McDonald's. These girls were giggling and playing this video on their little phones and sharing it with one another. I had to eavesdrop just for a second, just till I heard they were talking about Brad Pitt. And the movie had come out Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And they were talking about I think it's famous now, Brad Pitt on the roof. What is he installing? A television dish or something? Antenna? And he's in a wife beater. And I thought, that he could be the angel. Why it will never happen is simple. These people build a moat around themselves. I mean, they hire agents and the agents and managers, everybody around them absolutely refuse to read a script, which makes me think we're talking about establishment. I mean, the Hollywood establishment. Why don't they go to the state legislature and ask for statutory immunity from lawsuits, or a limitation? Baseball has a total. You cannot sue Major League Baseball for antitrust. You can sue owners for tort law with a cap on, this is in federal court, when somebody from Pennsylvania goes to New York and gets hit by a foul ball, you can only sue for actual damages, $250 doctor bill, not punitive. Well, you didn't have a screen up to protect the fans. It's going to be $1 million lawsuit. They don't have that. They've got limitation. Lawyers in a lot of states have limitations. You can't sue a lawyer because he loses a case. A lot of those laws say gross negligence. Well, gross negligence is huge. I mean, what does the word gross mean? You would have to be an idiot to be a lawyer and lose a lawsuit because you lost a lawsuit. It's just not going to happen. Doctors in a lot of states. Now, there's a lot of studies. States that limit doctors' liability have lower healthcare costs. And so that's been a strategy for a long time. Not all states do that, but why don't Hollywood executives go to the state legislature and say, we want that. We want immunity from lawsuits for when someone makes a similar movie. And maybe they got the idea from us, or maybe it's just a coincidence. I think that's a trivial lawsuit. If someone steals your idea, you sue the person who steals it, not his agent, or not an agent that probably accidentally heard, or maybe out of the goodness of his heart read the script and didn't share it with anyone, and then they're sued. It's absolutely ridiculous. You know why they won't go to Sacramento and get that changed? It's because they're establishment. They have a list. Yes, they call it a list. Are you on my list? We don't read unsolicited material, and we're not accepting anyone on our list. They won't read it. That means they probably didn't read the query letter. I don't really get upset too much. It's not personal for me. These people are not creative. If they cared about what they were producing, I think they care about the paycheck. They would read scripts. If they cared what they were producing, they would read scripts. The way it is now, they are establishment, and they read the same writers. They have 8 writers, and they just make the same movies over and over and over again. You wonder why all movies are the same? I don't think it's because, Goethe said there's only 47 stories, and then I heard a guy on television saying, well, there's 47, so in 30 years we've invented 5 stories. That's not why the movies are the same thing over and over and over again. It's because the people that make movies read the same writers over and over and over again. And they don't have anything new in the inkwell. How is, with the current litigation situation and the current paradigm about the way of thinking about being sued, how is a black, brown, lesbian, or transgender, or a young person, or a female going to get on that list of 8? They're not. Their stuff's not going to be read. They're going to be poo-pooed and made to feel like shit. It's not personal. Hey, I have a PhD, and there are not many grammatical errors in my stuff, and I'm not gonna spend my time. I know the value of my time, and I'm not going to waste it on something that is not worthy, doesn't have merit. And so I research and think about it beforehand, and I justify it before I write it. But these people reject a lot of stuff out of hand. I hate the stuff that is rejected by a computer. There are programs, and they hook it up to their mailbox. They check their mailbox every day at 3:25 and send rejection letters to every email that comes in. You can write Mary Had a Little Lamb to someone at CAA, and at a certain time you will get a computer-generated rejection letter. You do it the next day, and you write the first couple lines from Peter Pan, and at 3:25, the same time that happened yesterday, you got a rejection letter. You're going to get one today too. And they have a database. You're trying to intimidate you like you're a criminal. You last wrote us unsolicited material on this day and this day and this day. We don't, again, they put again in huge caps, again, like you're bothering us. It's your F word job to read scripts. And if you want to read white guys that write shitty character lines, shitty dialogue for black, brown, lesbian, and transgender characters, you're not doing your damn job. No, they're not going to go to Sacramento. That would be the end of their aristocracy, their elite. listen, there is a revolution going on in this country, and many people are not trained, and maybe there's a lot of wishful thinking. Hopeful. God, I hope these populists don't take over and destroy our nice, safe establishment. First, in Washington, D.C., Donald Trump was elected as not so much a capitalist, he was an anti-establishment candidate. And he got it done. So in the Republican Party, you can really make the case, seriously make the case, 51% of Republicans are anti-establishment. It's Romney and McCain and all those people that have been in the Senate for 35 years who resisted Trump. And I don't know, whether you like Donald Trump or not, it doesn't matter. Enemy or you love him, you have to admit that he's anti-establishment. And Washington was scared to death. And the next Republican nominee, and maybe the next president, will be anti-establishment. I feel either way, Democrat or Republican, they will be like Donald Trump and look to tear down the establishment, the comfortable. Now, what does this have to do with Washington, D.C.? Okay, the Democrats forgot. Anywhere from a third to a half of Democrats are anti-establishment. Look at the Democratic opposition to Joe Biden. Joe Biden's establishment. But look at his Democratic detractors and people giving him hell. And they're going to make sure he's not so successful. And you just mark my words, someone to the left of Joe Biden will win the Democratic nomination. And someone probably to the right of Donald Trump will win the Republican nomination. And I'm not sure it really matters who wins, not for this argument. Might matter for America, but it doesn't matter for this argument. The establishment's time in D.C. is almost over. But what about the establishment in Hollywood? It'll be a long time before they give up power. No, they're not going to start reading scripts. They're not going to write parts for African Americans or transgender tokenism, which everybody knows the word token. And it seems okay for the establishment in Hollywood. Look at all the parts. I don't remember the year. I wrote a script. That year I wrote a script about Comanche and tried to make them the Comanche Indians, Native Americans on the plains, the southern plains, Texas, Oklahoma, southern Kansas, eastern New Mexico, the bottom corner of Colorado. And they would torture the hell out of you, everybody. If they caught you, you were dead after 3 or 4 days. Never in the first 10 minutes, but it would be long, drawn out, because they thought you were not human. But kind of like the Vikings, they had they loved their kids, wouldn't spank. They didn't believe in corporal punishment, wouldn't spank their kids. They'd scare them, come up to them in the night and tell them stories and get them all scared that if they didn't do the right thing, owl or coyote, not coyote, but coyote was something they made up to scare their kids. They loved their kids, and they got married, and they had families and relationships, and they had an economy, and I thought that would be a great television series. That same year, they had, I think it was 14 African Americans. And that script was roundly rejected. I wrote 100 or more query letters, explained it just in those terms. of humanizing American Indians, and I was totally rejected. No Native Americans were nominated that year, and 14 persons of color were nominated. Not a single one won. Their parts were tokens, or they were just flat out ignore their nomination might be considered just a token nomination. None of them won. And the next morning, there was on Good Morning America, and there was someone naively or very bright, I'm not sure which one. He said, people of color can't get a decent role in Hollywood because there are no writers, no black, brown, or people of color who write scripts. He said this on national television. I mean, Good Morning America is huge ratings. Everybody heard it, and it just flies right over everybody's head. And the Hollywood elite are allowed to keep their list of approved writers. It's worse than the Soviet Union. My expertise is Soviet Union, as that was what was going on when I was in school. And they had a writers' trade union, and there was a list. And if the Communist Party liked you, you were published. And if they didn't like you, you might be ignored. If you were a threat to them in any way, you were sent to a gulag. And everybody knows the story of Gulag Archipelago and Alexander Solzhenitsyn. I asked my students this a long time ago, and I'm sure maybe it's a little bit much for them, for freshmen or even sophomore government. But what is the difference between the Communist Party having a list and the Hollywood establishment having a list? In the end, we put a lot of people in prison, but probably not for writing. Now, if you're an addict or a shoplifter, or you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, or you're the wrong skin color, you might go to prison, but it's probably not for your words. But still, what's the difference? The published word's the same. It's the message of a few. Oh, the first day in every government class we're taught. I teach. Everybody teaches. I mean, it might be your first day in college. You have to know between the difference between aristocracy, oligarchy, democracy. You learn the Greek. Demos is the Greek word for people. But a few people, that's ollie. It's the Greek word for a few. A few people in Hollywood are deciding what's published or produced. Yeah, it's despicable. No, they're not artists. They work for artists. And they've scarred people like Seth Rogen. So this is a story about a Jewish family and two families, 7 weddings, 2 families, 2 major families, and I guess all total it's 9 families. And the problems surrounding, a demonic predator killing the poor girls. He'll never see it. He won't have the chance to play Toby, his handler. Oh, handler. You call him an agent, a representative. But they manhandle their clients for their own good. And I've been around theater people, and I know a lot of them can't. They invest so much in the craft, they can't take care of their personal business. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about walls built to keep good ideas from artistic people. You have to stop sending these unsolicited material rejection slips. It destroys young people. It discourages art, and it's straight out of the Soviet Union playbook. And maybe you never heard that before. Think about it. I think black, brown, and transgender people are about to upend the apple cart in Hollywood. I'll be glad. I'll be the first one clapping because they hate conservatives, but they will do everything within their power to maintain their own sphere of influence. And that's making the same films they've made the year before. It's easy. One last idea. Did you ever think the establishment are allowed to do this because of the opulence of Hollywood? You can sit on your ass and read 8 scripts a year and make a decent living. The movies I know a lot of movies are flops and they lose money, but look at all the people sitting on their ass. And they have a nice house and they're not really worried about black, brown, or transgender stories. They're not interested in a story from a female perspective because she's probably not going to kill anybody. She's probably not going to upset too many people. And women can make movies for women, it seems like, but women are not allowed to write for men. That's not going to change until you start reading their scripts. So, yeah, I think they're lazy. You're exactly right. You are exactly right. And, I edit all this out. You're not going to take it out of context. Tobit, the book of Tobit's 3,000 years old. 1.5 billion people know the story already. No one's going to accuse me of blasphemy or you changed the Bible. I don't know whether it matters whether I change it or not. You're not going to produce it anyway because I'm not on your list. I'm not bitter. I'm just trying to make a point. Call me anytime. You know I'm here.